Walking through my front door that evening, I expected the usual. Instead, I found my living room packed with her entire family. Her parents sat stiffly on the couch, her sister perched on the armchair with that smug expression she always wore, and her brother leaned against the wall like some kind of enforcer. The air felt thick with anticipation, like they were all waiting for a show to begin. My wife stood in the center of it all, arms crossed, wearing that cold smile I'd learned to recognize as trouble. She didn't even wait for me to set down my keys. "Since everyone's here," she announced, her voice carrying that theatrical tone she used when she wanted to make a point. I figured this was the perfect time to stop all the pretending. I looked around the room at these people who had suddenly become an audience. Her mother wouldn't meet my eyes. Her father sat with his jaw clenched. This wasn't a family gathering. This was an execution. Pretending what, exactly? I asked, keeping my voice level. I could sense where this was headed, but I wanted to hear her say it. She tilted her head with fake sympathy. Pretending you're a good husband. Pretending this marriage actually works. Pretending any of us believe you when you act like you care. Her sister actually snorted. The brother nodded like she was delivering some profound truth. They were all in on this little performance, sitting there like a jury that had already reached its verdict. "I want a divorce," she continued, savoring each word. "And I want you to stop pretending that comes as some kind of surprise. We all know you've been going through the motions for months." The room fell silent except for the ticking of that damn wall clock she'd insisted on buying. Everyone stared at me, waiting for the breakdown, waiting for me to beg, waiting for me to ask what I'd done wrong, how I could fix it, what I needed to change. Instead, I started laughing. Not a bitter laugh or a broken one. A genuine, amused chuckle that seemed to deflate the tension she'd worked so hard to build. "You staged a whole family intervention," I said, looking around the room. "To tell me you want out? You could have just said that over breakfast. Would have saved everyone the trip." Her confident expression flickered. This wasn't the reaction she'd rehearsed for. "This isn't a joke," she snapped. "I'm serious about this." "Oh, I can see that." I loosened my tie and looked at each family member in turn. "You all drove over here to watch her deliver this news like it's some kind of verdict. Very dramatic. Very coordinated." Her mother finally spoke up. "We're just concerned about both of you. Maybe if you tried to." "To what?" I interrupted. "To fight for someone who just publicly humiliated me in my own living room? To beg her to reconsider while you all sit here, judging every word I say?" The brother pushed off from the wall. "Look, man, she's trying to be honest with you. The least you could do is." "The least I could do." I cut him off, my voice dropping to a tone that made him step back, "is respect her decision. She wants a divorce. She gets a divorce." The silence that followed was different from before. Nobody had expected agreement. They'd expected drama, tears, maybe some desperate pleading that would justify this whole circus. My wife's mouth opened and closed. That's it. You're not even going to ask why." "Why would I?" I walked to the closet and pulled out a suitcase. "You've made your position crystal clear. You don't want to be married to me. Message received. Where are you going?" Her voice had lost that commanding edge. "Hotel." I started packing systematically, ignoring the audience. "You can have the house tonight to celebrate with your support group here. I'll be back tomorrow to get more of my things." Her father cleared his throat uncomfortably. "Now hold on. Maybe we should all." "No." I zipped the suitcase closed and faced the room. "She called this meeting to announce the end of our marriage. Meeting accomplished. Anything else is just wasting everyone's time." I walked toward the door, then paused. "Oh, and next time you want to ambush someone, maybe don't do it in their own house. It's poor manners." The last thing I saw before closing the door was my wife's face, frozen somewhere between shock and panic. Whatever reaction she'd planned for, whatever power play she'd orchestrated, it had just backfired spectacularly. As I drove away, I realized something had fundamentally changed in me during those 10 minutes. Not something that shifted or moved or any of that emotional nonsense. Something had simply clicked into place. I was done being anyone's doormat, done accepting disrespect disguised as honesty, done pretending that love meant tolerating contempt. She wanted to end this marriage with an audience? Fine. But she was about to learn that I didn't need her permission to walk away with my dignity intact. And more importantly, she was about to discover that divorcing someone who refuses to fight for scraps is a completely different game than divorcing someone who begs you to stay. The hotel room was exactly what I needed. Clean, quiet, and completely free of her family's judgmental stares. I sat at the small desk with my laptop open, methodically going through our financial records while my phone buzzed incessantly with calls I had no intention of answering. Her mother had called 6 times, her sister twice. Even her brother tried once, probably thinking male solidarity would somehow work in their favor. Each call went straight to voicemail, each message growing more frantic than the last. The financial picture was more interesting than I'd remembered. 3 years ago, when we'd refinanced the house, I'd insisted on keeping my business accounts separate. She'd complained about it then, calling it a trust issue. Turned out to be the smartest decision I'd ever made. Our joint checking account held about $12,000. The joint savings had maybe $8,000 more. But my business account, the investment portfolio I'd built, and the emergency fund she didn't even know existed, those told a very different story. I pulled up the mortgage documents next. The house was in both our names, but I'd made every payment for the last 2 years after her boutique started bleeding money. The paper trail was cleaner than I'd hoped. My phone buzzed again. This time it was her. I let it ring. Then she tried texting. "We need to talk." "This is ridiculous." I typed back. "Already talked. You were very clear about wanting a divorce." "That's not what I meant." "That's exactly what you meant. You said it in front of witnesses." 3 dots appeared and disappeared several times before she finally said, "Can you please just come home so we can discuss this like adults?" I almost laughed. Like adults. After staging that performance for her family, like some kind of reality show intervention. "I'll be by tomorrow afternoon to collect more clothes. Make sure your audience isn't there." The next morning, I found myself in the office of Rebecca Martinez, a divorce attorney whose reputation preceded her. She'd handled my business partner's divorce 2 years ago, and he'd warned me she didn't mess around. "Irreconcilable differences," she said, reviewing the notes I provided. "Standard no-fault divorce. But given the financial complexity and the circumstances of how this started, we'll want to be strategic about asset protection." I explained the house situation, the separate business accounts, and her failed boutique that had been hemorrhaging our joint funds for months. "She put on quite a show last night," I added. "Made sure her whole family was there to witness my supposed humiliation." Rebecca raised an eyebrow. Public embarrassment as grounds for the divorce announcement. Interesting tactic on her part. Usually indicates someone who thinks they hold more cards than they actually do. "What do you mean?" People who stage dramatic reveals usually believe they're in the power position. They want to control the narrative, make you react emotionally, maybe even make you do something stupid that hurts your position later. She leaned back in her chair. "Did you react emotionally?" I agreed with her and left. A slow smile spread across Rebecca's face. Perfect. That probably wasn't the reaction she was fishing for. We spent the next hour mapping out a timeline. Papers filed by Friday. Asset inventory completed by next week. Discovery period that would uncover every financial detail she'd been hiding. "One more thing," Rebecca said as I prepared to leave. "Don't engage in any dramatic conversations or negotiations outside of legal channels. Keep everything documented. And whatever you do, don't let her bait you into emotional reactions. People who stage public humiliations usually have backup plans." Driving back to the hotel, I thought about that last piece of advice. Backup plans. What kind of backup plan do you need when you've just announced you want to divorce your husband in front of your entire family? My phone rang again. Her sister this time. I answered on the 4th ring. "What is wrong with you?" she demanded without any greeting. "She's crying her eyes out, and you're just ignoring everyone?" "She asked for a divorce. I'm giving her one. What exactly am I supposed to be upset about? You could at least talk to her. Work things out. You've been married for 5 years. And yesterday, she decided those 5 years weren't worth a private conversation. She needed an audience to announce the end of our marriage. I respected her decision. That's not. She didn't mean it like that. How did she mean it exactly? Because standing in my living room telling me to stop pretending to be a good husband while her family watches seems pretty specific. The line went quiet for a long moment. "She thought you'd fight for her," her sister finally admitted. "Fight for someone who thinks so little of me that she'd humiliate me for sport? That's not fighting for someone. That's begging someone to treat you with basic human decency. But don't you love her?" I pulled into the hotel parking lot and turned off the engine. Love isn't accepting disrespect. Love isn't tolerating public humiliation. And love definitely isn't chasing after someone who's already made their exit speech. After hanging up, I sat in the car for a few minutes, watching people come and go from the hotel lobby. Normal people living normal lives, probably dealing with normal problems that didn't require family tribunals and dramatic announcements. Tomorrow I'd go back to the house to get my things. Tomorrow the real divorce process would begin. But tonight, for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace with my decisions. She'd wanted to end our marriage with maximum impact and drama. What she was about to discover was that divorcing someone who refuses to play victim is an entirely different game than the one she'd planned. I arrived at the house the next afternoon to find her car in the driveway, but no family vehicles in sight. Good. I wasn't interested in another performance. She opened the door before I could use my key, clearly having watched for me through the window. Her eyes were red and puffy, but I'd seen her fake tears before. This could go either way. We need to talk, she said, blocking the doorway. We already did that. Yesterday. In front of your entire family, remember? That's not what I meant, and you know it. She stepped aside reluctantly as I walked past her toward the bedroom. Really? Because it sounded pretty definitive to me. Stop pretending you want a divorce. Your exact words. I pulled out another suitcase and started packing methodically. Shirts, pants, the good watch my father had given me. She stood in the doorway watching like she was waiting for me to break down. I was angry, she said finally. I said things I didn't mean. No, you said things you meant, but didn't expect me to agree with. I folded my suits carefully. There's a difference. Don't you think we should try to work this out? 5 years of marriage should count for something. I stopped packing and turned to face her. 5 years should have counted for a private conversation. 5 years should have counted for basic respect. Instead, you turned it into a spectacle. I thought you'd try harder. Try harder to what? To convince you I'm worthy of staying married to me? To beg you to reconsider in front of people who clearly think I'm not good enough for you anyway. Her face flushed. That's not what happened. That's exactly what happened. I resumed packing. And here's what's really interesting. Remember when you borrowed $3,000 from our joint account last month for your boutique emergency? The one you said would solve all the cash flow problems. She went very still. What about it? Funny thing about emergencies. They usually leave paper trails. I pulled out my phone and showed her a screenshot. Especially when the emergency turns out to be a weekend trip to Vegas with your friend from work. The color drained from her face. How did you? Credit card statements are fascinating reading. 2 hotel rooms, spa treatments, expensive dinners. All charged to our account while you told me the boutique was about to go under. We needed to network, find investors. In a casino? At a resort spa? I closed the suitcase. But wait, there's more. I sat down on the bed and opened my laptop. Remember how you've been complaining that I never help with the boutique finances? How I don't understand the fashion business? Well, I decided to educate myself. Her hands were shaking now. What are you talking about? Your business partner, the one you're always texting about inventory decisions? Turns out he's been helping you with more than just fashion choices. Those late-night emergency boutique meetings show up on hotel records too. She sank onto the edge of the dresser. You hired someone to follow me? I didn't need to hire anyone. You used our credit cards for everything. Every dinner, every hotel, every time you thought you were being clever. I showed her another screenshot. 6 months of receipts. All very romantic for business meetings. It's not what you think. It's exactly what I think. And more importantly, it's exactly what your family would think if they saw these records. Now she was crying for real. They can't know about this. It would destroy my reputation, my relationship with them. Probably should have thought about that before you decided to destroy my reputation in front of them. I stood up and grabbed my suitcase. But don't worry. Unlike you, I don't need an audience to end a relationship. What do you want? Money? I'll figure out how to pay back. I don't want your money. I want you to understand something very clearly. I stopped at the bedroom door. Yesterday, you thought you were humiliating me. What you actually did was free me from pretending I didn't know who you really are. Please, we can work this out. I'll end things with him. I'll be honest about everything. End things with him? You mean the man you've been secretly dating while married to me? The one you've been spending our money on while telling me the boutique was failing. She nodded desperately. Here's the thing about honesty. It works better before you get caught. I picked up the suitcase. Your performance yesterday convinced me that divorce is exactly the right choice. Probably the first time we've agreed on something in months. As I walked through the living room, I noticed she'd cleaned up all evidence of her family's visit. The cushions were fluffed, the The coffee table cleared, like it never happened. "Where does this leave us?" she called from behind me. I turned back one last time. "It leaves you explaining to your family why the marriage you publicly declared dead is also going to be publicly expensive. It leaves you figuring out how to run a boutique without using someone else's credit cards. And it leaves you single, which is apparently what you wanted anyway. That's not fair. Fair would have been you asking for a divorce privately, like an adult. Fair would have been you being honest about your affair before staging a humiliation ceremony. But you chose drama over decency." I opened the front door. "Don't worry, though. I'm sure your family will be very understanding when they find out why you really wanted this divorce. Families love supporting daughters who gamble with their husband's money while cheating on them." The last thing I heard as I closed the door was her voice, much smaller now, saying wait. But I was already walking away. Rebecca's office felt like a war room Thursday morning. Documents spread across the conference table, bank statements organized in neat piles, and a timeline of financial irregularities that painted a very clear picture. "This is better than Christmas," Rebecca said, reviewing the credit card statements I compiled. She documented everything herself. Every hotel stay, every dinner, every spa treatment. Most cheating spouses try to hide the evidence. She paid for hers with joint funds. "Gets better," I said, sliding another folder across the table. "Her boutique's business account. She's been transferring money from our joint savings to cover losses, then using those same funds for personal expenses." Rebecca whistled low. "Marital funds used to finance an extramarital affair. This is textbook financial misconduct. So what's our next move?" "We file papers today. Full financial disclosure request. Asset freeze on all joint accounts. And we schedule a meeting with her family." I looked up from the documents. "Her family? Why?" "Because they were witnesses to her divorce announcement. They'll need to understand the full context of why that announcement was made." Rebecca's smile was sharp. "Trust me on this one." That afternoon, I received a call from her mother. "This has gone far enough," she said without preamble. "You're being vindictive and cruel. She made a mistake, but that doesn't mean you should destroy her life." "I'm not destroying anything. I'm documenting what she already destroyed." "What are you talking about? Has she told you about her business partner? The one she's been having dinner with 3 times a week for the last 6 months?" Silence. "Has she mentioned the Vegas trip she took with our emergency fund? The one she told me was a business conference?" More silence. "Maybe you should ask her about those things before you decide who's being cruel." "You're lying." Saturday, 2 o'clock. Rebecca Martinez's office downtown. "Bring your husband and anyone else who was at Tuesday's performance. Come see the receipts for yourself." I hung up before she could respond. Friday morning brought the official papers. I had them served at the boutique during business hours in front of customers. Not out of spite, but because that's when she'd be there to receive them personally. Her call came 20 minutes later. "You served me divorce papers at my store? In front of my customers? You announced our divorce in front of your family. I figured you liked public declarations. This is different, and you know it." "You're right. This is legal and official. Your announcement was just theater. I want to meet. Tonight. Somewhere we can talk privately." "No." "What do you mean, no?" "I mean our private talking phase ended Tuesday night. From now on, everything goes through attorneys or happens in front of witnesses." "You're being ridiculous." "I'm being careful. There's a difference." Saturday afternoon, Rebecca's conference room filled up exactly as planned. Her parents, her sister, her brother, all looking uncomfortable and confused. My wife sat at the far end of the table, pale and tense. "Thank you all for coming," Rebecca began. "As you witnessed earlier this week, divorce proceedings have begun. However, there seem to be some misconceptions about the circumstances that led to this decision." She opened the first folder. "These are credit card statements from the joint marital account for the past 6 months." I watched their faces as Rebecca walked through each expense. The Vegas trip disguised as a business conference. The romantic dinners charged to our account while I ate takeout at home. The hotel stays that coincided with days she'd told me she was working late. Her father's jaw got tighter with each revelation. Her mother kept glancing between the documents and her daughter like she was trying to solve a puzzle. "There's also the matter of the business partner," Rebecca continued, producing another set of documents. Phone records show daily communication, often late at night and on weekends. Hotel registrations show repeated stays at the same locations. Her brother was the first to speak. "Is this real?" My wife finally found her voice. Those records don't prove anything. We were just working together? I interrupted. Is that why you needed to use our emergency fund for spa treatments while you were working? Very hands-on approach to fashion retail. Her sister stared at the papers. You've been cheating on him? It's complicated. No. Her father cut her off, his voice harsh. It's not complicated. You cheated. You lied. You stole money from your marriage to pay for it. Then you staged that circus Tuesday night to make him look like the bad guy. The room fell silent except for the sound of papers rustling as her mother continued reading through the evidence. How long? Her mother asked quietly. 6 months. I answered when my wife didn't respond. Maybe longer. These records only go back to when she started getting careless with the credit card. Her father stood up abruptly. We owe you an apology. We thought. She told us you were neglecting her, that you'd stop trying in the marriage. Apparently, her definition of trying harder was me not noticing her affair. Her brother shook his head in disgust. We sat there Tuesday night thinking you were being cold and unfeeling. Meanwhile, you already knew all this. I suspected. I confirmed it Wednesday morning. Her mother looked directly at her daughter. How could you put us in that position? How could you make us part of humiliating an innocent man? My wife tried to speak, but no words came out. The financial analysis is complete, Rebecca announced. Given the misuse of marital funds and the circumstances surrounding the divorce announcement, we'll be seeking full restitution for the misappropriated assets, plus legal fees. Her father turned to me. What can we do to make this right? Nothing, I said simply. This isn't your mess to clean up. It's hers. As the family filed out, her father stopped beside my chair. For what it's worth, you handled this with more class than I would have. After they left, my wife sat alone at the end of the table, staring at the pile of evidence. This will ruin everything, she whispered. No, I corrected. You already ruined everything. This just documents what you ruined. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. What do you want me to do? Nothing. There's nothing left to do. You made your choice 6 months ago when you started spending our money on another man. You made it again Tuesday when you decided to humiliate me instead of having an honest conversation. I stood to leave. The only thing left now is paperwork. Monday morning brought a surprise. She was waiting in the hotel lobby when I came down for breakfast, looking like she hadn't slept in days. The confident woman who'd staged Tuesday's performance was gone, replaced by someone desperate and defeated. We need to talk, she said, standing up from the lobby chair. No, we don't. I walked past her toward the restaurant. She followed. Please, just 5 minutes. I stopped and turned around. You had 5 years to talk to me. You chose to spend the last 6 months talking to someone else instead. I made a mistake. A huge mistake. But we can fix this. The hotel lobby wasn't the place for this conversation, but I wasn't going anywhere private with her either. Fix what exactly? The affair? The lying? The stealing? Or just the part where you got caught? All of it. I'll end things with him completely. I'll pay back every penny. I'll do whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. I almost laughed. What it would have taken was honesty. What it would have taken was basic respect. What it would have taken was not staging a public humiliation when you decided our marriage was over. I was scared. I didn't know how to tell you about everything. So instead, you decided to make me look like a failure in front of your entire family? That was your solution to being scared. She wiped her eyes. I thought if I made you angry, if I pushed you away, it would be easier for both of us. Easier for you, you mean? You wanted me to be the villain so you could be the victim. Unfortunately for your plan, I don't take direction well. Your lawyer is asking for everything. The house, the boutique, even my car. My lawyer is asking for restitution for marital funds you stole, finance your affair. If that happens to be everything you own, maybe you should have thought about that before you decided to gamble with our marriage. She sat down heavily in one of the lobby chairs. My family won't even talk to me. My mother called me a disgrace. My father said I embarrassed the family name. Probably because you did. You turned them against me. I showed them receipts. They turned themselves against you when they realized what kind of person you actually are. So that's it. You're just going to destroy my entire life because I made some bad choices. I sat down across from her, leaning forward so she could see exactly how serious I was. You destroyed your own life the moment you decided cheating was easier than communication. You destroyed it further when you thought stealing was easier than honesty. You put the final nail in the coffin when you decided public humiliation was easier than private conversation. But I love you. No, you don't. People who love each other don't stage interventions to announce divorce. People who love each other don't steal money to fund affairs. People who love each other don't try to humiliate their partner in front of family. What if I can prove I've changed? What if I cut off all contact with him, close the boutique, start over completely? Then you'll be a single woman starting over completely, which is exactly what you asked for Tuesday night. She was crying harder now, but I felt nothing. No sympathy, no urge to comfort her, no desire to fix what she'd broken. This isn't who you are, she said desperately. You're not this cold. You're not this calculating. You're right. The man you were married to wasn't cold or calculating. He was trusting and accommodating and willing to overlook red flags because he believed in his marriage. I stood up. That man died Tuesday night when you decided to kill him in front of an audience. Please don't do this. I'll sign a prenup for the next marriage. I'll agree to counseling. I'll do anything. The next marriage? I looked down at her with genuine curiosity. You think there's going to be a next marriage between us? I thought, maybe if I proved I could change. The only thing you've proved is that when caught, you'll promise anything to avoid consequences. That's not change. That's panic. Her phone buzzed. She glanced at it automatically, then looked stricken. Let me guess, I said. Your business partner wondering why you haven't returned his calls. She didn't answer, but her expression told me everything. See, that's the problem with affairs. They don't just pause because you got caught. He's probably wondering why his girlfriend suddenly went quiet. Meanwhile, you're here trying to convince your husband to take you back. It's over with him. Completely over. Maybe it is. Maybe it isn't. But here's what I know for certain. It's over with us. Completely over. I walked toward the hotel exit, then turned back one last time. You wanted a divorce Tuesday night. You're getting one. The only difference between what you planned and what's actually happening is that you don't get to control the story anymore. What am I supposed to do now? Figure it out. You're a strong, independent woman who doesn't need a husband, remember? That was the whole point of Tuesday's announcement. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. You just didn't expect me to agree with you. As I walked away, I heard her calling my name, but I didn't turn around. The woman who'd stood in our living room announcing my inadequacies to her family was learning that actions have consequences. And consequences, unlike marriages, aren't negotiable. 3 months later, I signed the final divorce papers in Rebecca's office. The settlement was everything we'd asked for and more. Full restitution for the misappropriated funds, the house, and enough liquid assets to cover my legal fees twice over. She agreed to everything? I asked, reviewing the documents one last time. Her attorney advised her that fighting would only make things worse. The evidence was overwhelming, and her family refused to provide financial support for a prolonged legal battle. I'd heard through mutual friends that her parents had completely cut her off after learning the full extent of her deception. Her father, a man who prided himself on family honor, couldn't stomach the idea that his daughter had publicly humiliated an innocent man while secretly conducting an affair. What about the boutique? Closed last week. Turns out her business partner disappeared when things got complicated. Left her holding all the debt and lease obligations. Convenient timing. Amazing how quickly affair partners vanish when lawyers get involved. I walked out of that office feeling lighter than I had in years. Not relieved or grateful or any of those weak emotions people expect from divorce. Just free. Free from pretending that disrespect was normal. Free from making excuses for someone who saw kindness as weakness. The house felt different when I returned. Bigger somehow, without the constant tension that had filled every room for months. I'd had the locks changed the week after she moved out, not out of anger, but because this was my space now. My rules, my peace, my life. I kept the living room exactly as it was the night of her family intervention. Same furniture arrangement, same everything. Not as a shrine to what we'd lost, but as a reminder of what I'd gained. Self-respect doesn't have a price tag, but apparently it costs some people everything they thought they owned. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. I almost deleted it without reading, but curiosity won. This is her sister. I wanted you to know we're sorry for Tuesday night. We had no idea about any of the other stuff. She told us you were neglecting her, not trying anymore. We thought we were helping. I stared at the message for a moment, then typed back. People who are being neglected asked for attention. People who are cheating stage distractions. She's staying with a friend now. Lost the apartment when the boutique failed. Says she can't afford anywhere decent. She'll figure it out. She's resourceful when she needs to be. Do you hate her? That was an interesting question. Did I hate the woman who tried to publicly humiliate me while secretly stealing from me? The woman who'd gambled our marriage on the assumption that I'd beg her to stay? No, I just don't care about her anymore. There's a difference. That might be worse. For her, probably. The conversation ended there, but it crystallized something I'd been thinking about for weeks. Hate requires investment. Anger requires energy. Caring about someone enough to hate them means they still have power over you. She had no power over me anymore. 6 months after the divorce was finalized, I ran into her at a grocery store. She looked smaller somehow, tired. The confidence that had carried her through our marriage and that disastrous family meeting was gone. "How are you doing?" she asked awkwardly. "Well, getting by." We stood there for a moment in the produce section, two people who used to share a life now struggling to fill 30 seconds of conversation. "I heard you bought a bigger house," she said finally. "Needed more space." "For what?" "For living without drama." She flinched but recovered quickly. "Look, I know things ended badly between us, but I want you to know I learned from my mistakes. I'm in therapy now, working on myself." "Good for you. Maybe we could, I don't know, get coffee sometime? Talk about what went wrong." I looked at this woman who'd once meant everything to me, who'd shared my bed and my dreams and my bank account, who'd thrown it all away for excitement and validation from a man who'd abandoned her the moment things got complicated. "No," I said simply. "Why not?" "Because there's nothing left to talk about. You made your choices. I made mine. We're both living with the consequences. But don't you miss what we had? I miss who I thought you were. But that person never actually existed." I grabbed my cart and started to walk away. "Wait," she called. I never got to properly apologize for Tuesday night, for the way I handled everything. I turned back one last time. "You don't owe me an apology. You owe yourself some honesty about why you needed an audience to end our marriage instead of just having a conversation. I was scared you'd convince me to stay. Then you already knew you were making the wrong choice. You just wanted someone else to blame for it." Walking away from that grocery store, I realized the transformation was complete. Not the dramatic, emotional journey people expect from divorce stories. Just a simple, quiet recognition that respect is non-negotiable, that dignity isn't something you fight for, it's something you maintain. She'd wanted a divorce with maximum drama and minimum responsibility. Instead, she got exactly what she'd asked for, just not how she'd planned to get it. Sometimes the best revenge isn't dramatic or emotional. Sometimes it's just letting people have exactly what they thought they wanted.